Imagine waking up one morning with a strange and unsettling feeling deep inside you. A quiet whisper suggesting that the life you believe is yours might not actually belong to you at all. Consider the very real possibility that every important choice you have made throughout your years was not entirely your own decision to make. Think about how every strong belief you hold, and even the deepest desires that push you forward each day, might have originated from somewhere outside of you. These powerful influences may not have started in the most genuine part of your soul, but instead came from the constant expectations and unseen pressures of the world around you. A great deal of your identity could be a reflection of what other people wanted you to be, rather than a true and accurate picture of your authentic self. How much of who you appear to be is just a carefully designed mask that has been shaped over time by the pressures of family, friends, and society? Do you ever get the feeling that you are simply playing a character in a grand play, following a detailed script that was written for you a very long time ago? This script might have been handed to you by your specific upbringing, your unique culture, or by the quiet fears that are always whispering their cautious advice in the back of your mind. Today, we will explore a profound and life-changing idea from the famous psychologist Carl Jung, who believed that our real life only truly starts when you find yourself. But what does the popular phrase, "to find yourself," actually mean in a practical and understandable sense? Is it simply about learning a few new facts about your personality from a quiz? Or does it involve a much deeper and more transformative process of discovery? Stay with me on this important journey, because as we begin to uncover the hidden forces that have built your identity, you will start to see things very differently. You will come to understand why most people live their whole lives without ever discovering who they truly are, and you will learn how you can finally break free from those same limitations. The final idea we will discuss is the most powerful concept of them all, holding the incredible potential to completely change your entire perspective on life. It can shift not only the way you understand yourself as a person, but also the very way you interact with the world and with others every single day. Carl Gustav Jung was a true pioneer of depth psychology, a brilliant and courageous thinker who explored the vast, hidden worlds that exist inside the human mind. Unlike many other psychologists during his time, Jung did not believe that being mentally healthy was just a matter of adjusting your behavior to fit into society's norms. Instead, he saw real psychological growth as a great and noble adventure toward becoming your own unique and authentic individual, a lifelong process he famously called individuation. However, the sad and unfortunate reality is that most people never actually begin this important journey of self-discovery and personal growth. They remain stuck inside a version of themselves that was constructed for them by external influences, living a life based on what is expected of them. They rarely, if ever, stop to ask themselves if the life they are currently leading is truly the one that matches the person they are deep down inside. Many people search for validation and happiness from the outside world, sincerely believing that true and lasting joy comes from getting praise, achieving material success, or fitting in with the crowd. Yet, even when they manage to get these things, there is often a quiet feeling of unrest and dissatisfaction deep within their soul, an unshakable sense that something important is missing from their lives. Jung believed that our real life finally begins when we stop running away from ourselves and find the courage to turn around and face what is waiting for us inside. But before we can talk about what it truly means to find yourself, we must first understand the powerful and often invisible forces that prevent most people from ever starting their journey. From the very moment we are born into this world, we begin a long and gradual process of societal and familial conditioning. We are given names that we did not choose, assigned identities that we did not create, and pushed into specific roles before we can even begin to understand them. Our parents, our teachers, and our society as a whole teach us what kind of behavior is acceptable and what is not, as well as what kind of actions get rewarded and what gets punished. This deep conditioning happens so slowly and so subtly over many years that we very rarely think to question it or wonder if there is another way to live. We simply adapt to the unwritten rules and conform to the spoken and unspoken expectations. And over a long period of time, we learn to bury the parts of ourselves that don't seem to fit the accepted mold. Think back to when you were a young child. Were there ever moments when you expressed your true, unfiltered self freely, only to be met with harsh criticism or clear disapproval from the adults around you? Perhaps you were told by someone to be more realistic with your dreams, to stop being so overly sensitive, or that certain powerful feelings and creative desires of yours were wrong or somehow inappropriate. Slowly but surely, you learned from these experiences to hide those unique and precious parts of your personality, carefully tucking them away in a secret place where nobody else could see or judge them. In doing this, you started to build a protective and functional mask, which the psychologist Carl Jung famously called the persona. The persona is the idealized and polished face we present to the outside world because it helps us to function properly in society and allows us to gain the acceptance and approval from others that we crave. But there is a very big and dangerous problem with relying too much on this mask, because the more we identify with it, the more we start to lose contact with our real, authentic self. We eventually begin to believe that we actually are the mask, completely forgetting that there is a deeper, more complex, and more interesting person living underneath it all. Then there is the other side of this psychological coin, which Jung referred to as the shadow, representing the absolute opposite of our public persona. If the persona is the polished version of ourselves that we proudly and strategically show to the world, then the shadow is everything that we desperately try to hide from it. The shadow contains all the things we have rejected or forcefully pushed down within ourselves, including our biggest fears, our most secret desires, our tender vulnerabilities, and even our greatest hidden strengths and talents. Here is where the concept gets even more profound and interesting, because the shadow does not simply disappear into nothingness just because we refuse to look at it or acknowledge its existence. It continues to operate secretly and powerfully beneath the surface of our conscious awareness, strongly influencing our thoughts, our behaviors, and our intense emotional reactions every single day. The parts of ourselves that we deny and passionately reject do not actually go away. Instead, they often show up in our lives in unconscious and surprising ways, frequently in the form of what is called projection onto other people. Have you ever felt an intense and immediate dislike for someone without having a clear or logical reason for feeling that way? Or have you ever been strongly triggered by certain behaviors you observe in other people, causing you to have a powerful and sometimes overwhelming emotional reaction? Jung explained that when we are very disturbed by a particular quality in another person, it is often because that exact same quality exists deep within our own personality, safely hidden away in our personal shadow. But what if I were to tell you that this dark and hidden shadow actually holds the ultimate key to achieving true self-discovery, wholeness, and personal freedom? What if the parts of yourself that you have suppressed and ignored for so long are not your enemies at all, but are actually the precious missing pieces you need to feel complete? Jung's greatest and most revolutionary insight was that real psychological growth is not about trying to eliminate the shadow, but is instead about courageously integrating it into your conscious self. It is about having the strength to look into the often frightening depths of your own unconscious mind and bravely face everything that you have denied for so long. When you finally do this, you unlock a profound and powerful source of personal energy, genuine authenticity, and incredible freedom that was always there waiting for you to claim it. This is the exact point where the real journey of self-discovery truly begins. A journey that asks if you are finally ready to confront the complete truth of who you are. Are you prepared to break free from the limiting illusions and old stories that have shaped your life and open the door to a future that is truly your own to create? Most people go through their entire lives believing they already know themselves, defining their precious identity by simple things like their name, their career, their culture, or their past mistakes. But your true identity is far more complex, mysterious, and wonderful than you realize, because the self you currently think you are is just a tiny fraction of a much deeper and more profound reality. Carl Jung believed that within every single person there exists a hidden inner world, a vast and intricate landscape filled with forgotten memories, suppressed emotions, and unacknowledged potential. The real key to finding yourself is not about building a new and better identity on top of the old one, but is about uncovering all the precious things that have been buried deep inside you for years. Take a moment right now to reflect and ask yourself whether you have ever felt a deep, unexplainable desire or longing for something more out of your life. This persistent feeling is not just your imagination running wild. It is the quiet but insistent voice of your unconscious mind calling you toward a greater and more complete version of yourself. Jung called this sacred journey individuation, and he believed that true fulfillment comes from integrating all aspects of ourselves, including the good, the bad, the light, and the dark parts. But before we can bring these disparate parts together into a harmonious and functioning whole, we must first have the courage to confront them directly, which is the very step where most people get scared and give up. Facing your true self is almost always uncomfortable because it requires you to look at aspects of your personality that you have spent a lifetime actively ignoring. It demands that you seriously question the beliefs you have held onto for years, that you challenge your deepest and most paralyzing fears, and that you finally work to resolve the inner conflicts that have shaped your entire life. Think about how often we actively avoid silence in our modern world, constantly distracting ourselves with endless work, non-stop social media, and mindless entertainment to keep from being alone with our own thoughts. This constant need for distraction is not accidental, but is a powerful and clever defense mechanism that our mind uses to help us avoid the deeper, more difficult questions about who we really are. Yet no matter how hard we try to run from them or pretend they don't exist, these hidden aspects of ourselves do not simply vanish into thin air. They continue to show up in our lives in unexpected and often problematic ways, such as through chronic anxiety, frustrating patterns of self-sabotage, unfulfilling relationships, or a persistent and nagging feeling of being lost. Jung taught that our unconscious mind is constantly trying to communicate with us through powerful symbols, dreams, and feelings, but most of us have unfortunately learned to ignore its vital and helpful messages. If we make the choice to start paying close and careful attention, however, we can begin to see the hidden patterns that govern our lives and influence our most important decisions. We start to notice how our oldest and deepest wounds from the past directly affect our current choices, and how our suppressed desires secretly shape our day-to-day behaviors. Let's consider the powerful and common example of having a deep-seated fear of rejection, which is something that affects millions of people all around the world. Many people live their entire lives absolutely terrified of being judged or abandoned by others, so they constantly seek approval and validation and try to avoid conflict at all costs. Jung would argue that this intense fear is not just a simple emotion, but is actually a significant shadow aspect of the self that needs to be brought into the light of consciousness to be healed. The incredible thing is that when we finally muster the courage to turn and face these hidden parts of ourselves, they begin to lose their secret and controlling power over us. Imagine for just a moment what it would feel like to live your life completely free from the heavy burden of the fear of judgment, able to speak your truth without any hesitation. This is the true and liberating power of individuation. It is not about becoming a completely new person, but about becoming more of the amazing person you have always been underneath the surface. One of the most effective ways to begin this profound journey is by paying close attention to your dreams, as Jung saw them as direct and uncensored messages from your deeper, wiser self. He also greatly emphasized the importance of creative expression, such as through art, writing, or music as a wonderful and therapeutic way to access and integrate the rich material from the unconscious mind. But perhaps the most crucial and fundamental first step is to simply practice the art of awareness by beginning to gently question your automatic thoughts, your habitual emotional reactions, and your most deeply held beliefs. The very moment you stop running away from your own discomfort and instead start approaching it with genuine and open curiosity, you begin the sacred process of reclaiming your true self. The sad truth is that most people live their entire lives as complete strangers to themselves, blindly following paths that were laid out for them by their family and by society. You, however, do not have to be one of those people, because you have the power within you to break free from the invisible chains and illusions that have held you back for so long. We must now confront the deepest and most challenging illusion of all, which is the very illusion of the self that we hold on to so tightly for security. You see, most people go through life assuming that their identity is a fixed, solid, and unchanging thing. But great thinkers like Jung understood that the self is not static at all. It is fluid and always evolving. The version of you that you identify with right now, your name, your story, your personality, is only a small fragment of a much larger and more magnificent consciousness. You are not just a single, isolated person moving through a meaningless life. You are a vast, interconnected field of awareness that carries the collective wisdom of generations within you. The greatest obstacle to realizing this profound truth is the ego, which is the part of your mind that creates a sense of separation and limits you with finite labels and definitions. The path forward requires you to bravely embrace the unknown, to willingly release your attachment to limiting labels, to learn to listen to your deep intuition, and to gracefully surrender to the beautiful, ongoing process of becoming. The ultimate and most liberating revelation is that you were never truly lost to begin with. The magnificent, whole, and complete self you have been searching for has been patiently waiting inside you all along. This journey of self-discovery is not a destination, but a continuous process of growth and awakening. Every step you take toward understanding your true nature brings you closer to authentic living. The courage to face your shadow, integrate your persona, and embrace your whole self is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Jung's wisdom reminds us that we are far more complex and magnificent than we ever imagined. The process of individuation is not easy, but it is the most rewarding journey you will ever undertake. As you begin to see through the illusions that have shaped your life, you discover the freedom to create your own authentic path. The unconscious mind holds treasures of wisdom, creativity, and potential that are waiting to be discovered. Through self-awareness and integration, you can transform your relationship with yourself and the world around you. The greatest adventure is not exploring the outer world, but diving deep into the vast landscape of your own consciousness. When you finally embrace all aspects of yourself, you realize that you are both the seeker and the sought. The journey home to your true self is the most important journey you will ever take, and it begins with a single step toward authentic self-discovery.